genocide! Defend Palestinian journalists!
Today is International Women's Day, and my name is Steve Zeltzer. I'm a member of the Pacific Media Workers Guild, CWA, Journalist Union, and we're here today to call for the defense of the journalists of Palestine and also to protest the murder of 16 women journalists who've been attacked and targeted by the IDF in Israel. And over 124 journalists have been killed in Palestine, in Gaza, and also journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, a Palestinian-American journalist, was assassinated in the West Bank. She was an Al Jazeera correspondent. And these are war crimes, and the attacks on these journalists is absolutely horrendous. And unfortunately, not only is the Israeli government responsible, but the U.S. government is giving billions of dollars of weapons and aid to the slaughter of the Palestinian people. So one of the reasons that journalists have been targeted in Gaza is they want to shut down information. They want to make an information blockade. And these journalists have put their lives on the line to get the information out. The women journalists have even taken their children because they don't have anyone to take care of their children. So we're saying here today that we must defend the journalists of Palestine. We must defend the journalists. And on Women's Day, the women are leading the way here in the Bay Area, nationally and internationally, to defend the Palestinian people. Solidarity with women workers, solidarity with women journalists all over the world, brothers and sisters. And the other thing that we have to say is journalism is under attack not only in Palestine and in other countries, but right here in the United States. Journalists have been attacked in the United States and retaliated against for even supporting the ceasefire. 3 journalists at the Los Angeles Times were retaliated against because they signed a petition for a ceasefire. Imagine, journalists signed a petition for a ceasefire, and then they're told by the LA Times that they can no longer report on any issues in the Middle East. This is outrageous. It's a crime. It's an attack and an effort to shut down accurate reporting on what's going on in the Middle East. We're saying solidarity with the people of Palestine. Defend the women journalists on International Women's Day. We are with you. We stand with you. We defend you. Our next speaker is Rosita, who's a member of Nurses for Palestine, and has been active in fighting to mobilize healthcare workers in the Bay Area in the United States to defend the Palestinians. Welcome, Rosita.
For the past 154 days, we have watched some of the worst tragedies live streamed to us. We have shared being collective witnesses as Israel has bombed hospitals, sacred places of healing, and yet the world watches. They have killed healthcare workers, journalists, and yet the world watches. They have killed Palestinians, young and old, without hesitation, and still the world watches. Israel is starving and then murdering those that dare to try and obtain flour, and yet the world watches. We are here to commemorate the 124 journalists that have been killed, 16 of them including women. On this day, as we sit here, and we commemorate women across the globe for the work that they do, for the sacrifices that they make, for the threats that they face in the face of colonialism and genocide. Well, I didn't really have anything prepared. I just kind of said some words, but I think this situation just kind of really encapsulates what we're facing on a larger scale. We're here trying to have a peaceful moment to commemorate women who have put their lives on the line to share the truth about what's going on, to share the truth about a genocide, to make sure that we don't forget, to make sure that we can see what's going on, because there's a huge issue right now that journalism is not showing the truth. They're showing a skewed vision of what's going on. It's very biased, and they're hiding a lot of the truths. They want to tell us that we shouldn't worry, that there's nothing going on, that maybe there's, not as many people killed, but we know what's going on. We know the truth of what's happening. So unions everywhere are organizing. We're organizing the everyday worker to bring attention to what's going on. These are journalists already. So of the 124 24 journalists that have lost their lives, 16 of them are women. Women who have braved the bombs and the atrocities and the violence that have come down in Gaza. Women who have been brave enough to try to document what's going on with their friends, their families, and their colleagues. It's extremely important that we don't turn a blind eye, that we continue watching, and that we continue pushing forward. As part of a union, it's important that we also stand in solidarity and that we push our unions as well as rank and file to really recognize that we need to stand on the right side of history. This is a humanitarian issue. So Bay Area Labor for Palestine has been organizing with 20 to 30 unions from across the Bay Area. They're part of a larger organization called Labor for Palestine that was created in 2004. And one of the most important tenets are that they want Israel to stop being armed by the US. They want boycott and divestment. Of course, we want a permanent ceasefire, not a 6-week temporary ceasefire. We understand that a temporary ceasefire is not the solution. We also understand that illegal occupation and illegal settlements that are cropping up are not helping. We have to be able to stand up, raise our voices. This is an ongoing issue. We understand how women journalists have been on the forefront and how they've been subject to attacks, as well as the men journalists. And on this day that we're standing here for solidarity with women all over the world, we understand the effects of colonialism, we understand the effects of the US imperialist, capitalist agendas. And so I hope that beyond today that we continue fighting for what we know is to be right.
Our next speaker is a longtime anti-imperialist who's been organizing her entire life against U.S. imperialism. And the war, this crime of genocide is not new. The United States was involved in genocide in Vietnam, where 3 million people were killed. So we have to look at this history. It's not just the Palestinians. The United States has been killing millions of people all over the world, and we have to learn the lessons for the struggle. That's why we're in favor of shutting down all U.S. bases. There shouldn't be no U.S. base around the world. There are trillions of dollars spent for war when people are dying in the streets of San Francisco. Welcome, Carol.
I just want to say we're here at the Chronicle, but have we gotten our information that there's a genocide going on from the Chronicle? No, we've gotten it from the Palestinian journalists, women and men. That's where we've gotten it. If we've gotten any information, it's from them. And finally, a little bit here and there seeps into the mainstream press. But then they taint it. They blame all the violence on Hamas when it's over 30-to-1 ratio that of the people Israel has killed. And most of the people that Israel has killed are women and children. But we mourn the men and the women and the children. This is, I'm a Jew, and I find it so horrible that a genocide is being committed in the name of a country that's supposed to be a Jewish country. It's absolutely horrible. I think a lot of people who are Jews, like me, learn to be against oppression and lies and imperialism by learning about the Holocaust that happened against the Jewish people. And now here it is, another genocide. We were supposed to have learned, and the U.S. has not learned, and well, they're doing it intentionally. So it's absolutely essential to recognize that it's not just Israel that's carrying out this genocide, although they are carrying out. But they could not carry it out without the United States. The United States is paying for this genocide. All the 2,000-pound bombs that have been dropped on the apartment buildings and housing and hospitals in Gaza are supplied by the United States. 2,000-pound bombs. What did they call them? The mother of all bombs? The bunker busters. Bunker busters killing whole families in their homes. And you know what? Who's paying for that? We're paying for it. U.S. tax money goes to pay for these weapons of the genocide. So we need to be demonstrating, we need to stop this. We need to protest in every possible way we can. We need to have any organization we're associated with, any school, any state. Watch out, Steve, a bus is coming. We need to make sure that all institutions of this society divest from companies that make money off of this war and any businesses in Israel, any institutions in Israel. You know who is making big money off of this war? United States war production, military supplies, people who make companies that make the bombs and the guns. And we say no. And we mourn the journalists who have informed us about this, because we didn't learn it from the U.S. press. We learned it from the Palestinian journalists. And we thank them and we mourn them and we say no to genocide.
My name's Jackie Barshak. As we celebrate International Women's Day, we celebrate women. What do the women in Gaza have to celebrate? What is so glorious about being a woman in Gaza? When 63 women, at least, are killed every day in Gaza, and most of those women are mothers. Women are both trying to care for their families, find food, prevent starvation, and at the same time document what they're seeing. It would be, if it's of interest to anyone here, to interview a Gazan journalist, a woman Gazan journalist, and you know of a place where it could be published, please talk to me.
This rally today, this remembrance of the journalists who've been killed, has been not a new thing for the Palestinian people, because they've been targeted since the establishment of the State of Israel. They were targeted before that, actually, by the government, the Histadrut, the Zionists, who wanted to ethnically cleanse that country to bring in Jews. And they discriminated against Arab workers in order to get a Jewish population. And our unions, the AFL-CIO, has been silent. In fact, they have relations with the Histadrut, the Israeli Trade Union Federation. Our unions need to take a strong stand in support of the Palestinian people and workers. They need to take labor action. They should be closing down the ports and closing down traffic, all traffic to Israel. That's the way to shut down this war, because the politicians aren't going to do it. Yesterday, there was a statement of our President Biden, who is a war criminal, who has agreed to continue to give weapons to this country. What does that say about the United States? It means that the leadership of the government of the United States are in complicity with these war crimes. This would not happen 1 minute without the support of the United States government. And we are paying for it with our tax dollars. When people are hungry in this country, when people can't get health care, they're sending money. And by the way, Israel has national health care. How do you like that? The people in Israel, if you're an Israeli citizen, can get national health care, but here people are dying and going to bankruptcy to pay their health care bills. That's a crime. That's a crime. Health care is a human right. Every person should have health care. A person who's written about it, his family died in Germany, parts of his family. Bruce Neuberger, he's a retired professor at AFT 2121, and he's written about this issue. Welcome, Bruce.
Steve introduced me as, my grandfather was a Nazi resistor. He was murdered after a trial at the People's Court in 1942. He was executed in a prison in Germany, in Berlin. You know, all my family were refugees from Germany. I grew up with that. And when I was going to Temple as a young child, I was asked to bring nickels to plant trees in Israel, which we were told, as children, we were told, oh, it's an empty land, and we're going to make the desert bloom. And it sounded good to me as a child. There was never a mention of the fact that there were Palestinian people that lived there. That was something that was never told to us. And the lie that it was an empty land persists even today. I have a distant cousin that I've been communicating with who lives in Jerusalem, happens to be a Hasidic rabbi, who basically said there weren't Palestinians in this land until Jews showed up, until Israel was formed, which is, I mean, total nonsense. But, you know, they continue to promote this lie. If it's not that the Palestinians didn't exist, then they're subhuman. Using the same language the Nazis used to anesthetize the people in Germany to allow the Holocaust to go on is now being used by the Zionists, and has been from the very beginning. So I thank you for giving me the mic. I stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people. I told people at a gathering not that long ago that when I was writing the story of my family that were murdered in different camps in different places in Europe, that I would frequently start crying just to think about the conditions under which they died. And now I cry when I think about the Palestinians. What's happening to the Palestinians, all of you here know this, is indescribably horrible and a crime that's impossible to describe. The magnitude of the crime is impossible to describe. This country is more than just a factor. This country bears more responsibility, and British imperialism as well. If you know, for those who don't understand the history or haven't had a chance to get to the history, they should read about how the British imperialists played the Jews against the Arabs during World War I. How the Zionist state, because it was based on a similar ideology to European imperialism, chauvinism, they saw the Zionist state as a potential bulwark for their interests in the Middle East. And the United States has likewise seen Israel as an asset. They don't give a shit about Jews. Let's get over this thing that they care about Jews. They don't. When my family was trying to get out of Germany after Kristallnacht in 1938, the U.S. slammed its door in their faces, and this has been documented. So, you know, this is another lie that needs to be exposed. The U.S. doesn't care about anybody but its imperialist, capitalist interests. And until we get rid of this system, we're not going to have a world where human beings are going to be the most important part of our society. It's going to be profits, it's going to be control of land and resources and all the rest. It's not going to change unless we change the system. I mean, it's a hard pill, it's a bitter pill to swallow, because we all, you know, like to think that we can change things, that we can change this society, I should say, and make it more humane. It can't be done. So anyway, I am in great awe of the men and women of Gaza, of the Palestinian people, of these incredible journalists who risk their lives doing what they're doing, and I want to do whatever little thing I can to support them. So thank you.
Thank you. And again, the real stories of what's been going on are being covered by the media. They're not being covered. The San Francisco Chronicle, the Hearst Corporation, the CNN, they repeat the lies of the Israeli government. They repeat the lies of the IDF. They're like propaganda machines for the people who are committing crimes. They blame the victims for the crimes. They blame the people of Palestine for the crimes. At last night's speech, President Biden said this began on October 7th. This began on October 7th. What a lie! There's been pogroms going on in the West Bank for years. They're raids of Zionists from America. American Zionist Jews are going to the West Bank and then killing Palestinians, taking their homes. And this government is allowing it. There are thousands of American citizens who are fighting in the IDF. The United States is allowing the slaughter of the Palestinians, is helping it militarily and economically. Our next speaker is a fighter here, an activist, Monique, who's been struggling here against the layoffs of her agency in the Tenderloin. And when you go to the Tenderloin, you come to the United States, you find out that people are dying in the streets, there's a drug crisis, there's a homeless crisis, and yet there's no money. They're saying they don't have money for it. So welcome Monique here, who's been fighting for the workers at her center and other people.
One of the things that we need to end this genocide and the occupation and apartheid of Palestine is we need to have a general strike. And we need for workers to start standing up and have a general strike, because that is our power. Our labor is our power. If we say no, just as Steve said, the U.S. would have no money to send to Israel to murder children and murder Palestinians. So that's what we do, is need to have a general strike. And one of the ways we need to think about this is the nonprofit workers, because nonprofit workers are exploited in this city and probably everywhere. Nonprofit workers get paid much less than city workers, but we do the same job. And so if the city had to pay all its workers government wages, then the money would be spent here to provide human rights, to provide health care, to provide homes and education and healthy food. We wouldn't have money to spend on genocide. We wouldn't have money to give to Israel to murder Palestinians. And as our last speaker just said, this has been going on for 75 years. We've been caught up in this capitalist system that puts profits first, that puts the war machine first, because that's the only way our government can make money, is through war and through its war machine. So workers, we have an opportunity here. We could end this so quickly by having a general strike. And we also need to investigate nonprofits and what they're doing with the money and the way they're wasting resources and the way then all those resources are going for war and for genocide. Thank you.
This call has been initiated by the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate, the International Federation of Journalists, which represents journalists all over the world. And there are journalists all over the world that are on Women's Day supporting the Palestinian women journalists in Gaza who've been murdered. Unfortunately, as far as I know, this is the only demonstration in the United States taking up that call. We have a job to do to educate the journalists. Now, some of the journalists say that they have to be objective. They can't take a stand. That is a question that everybody has to take a stand on. When the Nazis were killing Jews, do you think we should be objective and not take a side? I don't think so. But that's the position, unfortunately, of a number of journalists. And the other thing is that journalists are afraid of being retaliated against. In fact, the San Francisco Chronicle actually has a policy that you can't march, if you're a journalist, in a Women's Day march. You can't march in a Juneteenth march for black people. That's their position. Now, what kind of newspaper tells its journalists that you can't march on Women's Day or you can't march on May Day? This is outrageous, and the union has to fight this. Our unions have to fight for the democratic rights of journalists to participate as human beings, as political persons. Journalists have been retaliated at this newspaper who were critical of Israel. Henry Knorr is one of them who was fired. So this is a long history of this newspaper and the Hearst Corporation threatening journalists and intimidating them if they stand up for Palestinians. And Henry Knorr stood up for Palestinians. He wrote an article about Intel building a factory on Palestine land. That's why he was retaliated against at this newspaper. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the censorship of the news.
Hi everyone, I'm a healthcare worker. I didn't prepare anything to speak, but I just want to emphasize that what we're doing here right now is a bare minimum. Because after this demonstration, we go home and we still have a meal, we still have a place to sleep. It's a bare minimum that we're doing here. Like everyone else said earlier, it's about the system. We have to dismantle the system. So in November, if Democratic or Republican win, it's the same. To me, it's nothing different. So it's have to be another party. It's have to be another party that's care about the people. Yeah. If Democratic or Republican win, they will work for the lobby, the people who pay them, not for the people, like us, like the general. So, yeah, that's just how I have to say. Like we have to keep fighting, keep speaking up.
A couple of weeks ago, we had a rally at the Travis Air Force Base because Travis Air Force Base is the largest military transport base in the United States, transporting weapons and military equipment to Israel. It's used to bomb the people of Palestine. And they also transfer weapons to Ukraine, and they transfer weapons to Okinawa and the 800 bases around the world. And one of the people who's been involved for many years against U.S. military bases and drones is Toby. So welcome, Toby, from Code Pink.
Thank you, Steve, and I want to add something to what he said. The last action at Travis was our third action to protest U.S. weapons going from Travis to Israel. And it's a campaign that we want to continue. We have something planned for this month. If you're interested in finding out, please talk to me afterwards. I mostly want to bring the name Aaron Bushnell to, I don't know if anyone mentioned his name yet in this rally. But those of you who don't know Aaron Bushnell, probably most of you do. He was the young, active duty, 25 years old, who set himself on fire to protest his own complicity in the genocide because he was a computer analyst and probably saw a lot of the slaughter, not only by Israel, but what I found out from what he did is that he reported that U.S. troops are involved directly, not just by drones. They're on the ground helping with the slaughter. So I want to hold his name here. He did an extreme act of protest. I don't recommend people doing that, but I honor his life and his courage for doing what he did. And I also want to just say, every day of my life, I think about Gaza and Palestine right now. I cannot rest knowing what my government is complicit in. Every time I take a bath or shower, I think about the people of Gaza. How do they clean themselves? Every time I work out in my garden, which is not very much because I'm usually out in the streets most of the time, but when I'm watering a plant or taking care of the garden, I think about the people of Palestine who had their little pots and gardens that have been destroyed by Israel. Every aspect of their life has been turned upside down. And we have to, as the young woman on the bicycle said, Monique, we have to keep working hard, and the other woman too, I can't remember her name. We have to keep fighting, and yes, strike. Women, when they got our abortion rights taken away from us, we should have had a general women's strike across the country. I don't know I can't strike when I'm retired, but I don't know why women, just laid down on the ground and took it. Just because we in California still have abortion rights, we should have stood up and organized and just refuse to go to work until our reproductive rights are given back. So strike, strike, strike.
The atrocities, the war crimes that have happened and are happening in Gaza and Palestine are not unique. The United States in 1889 invaded the Philippines. They invaded Puerto Rico to supposedly bring democracy. Like the Israelis say they want to bring democracy to Palestine. They want to give the Palestinians democracy. And Afghanistan, that's really a crime. And we have with us today Ricardo Ortiz. He's with the United Front Committee for Labor Party, and he's a labor activist from Puerto Rico. Welcome, Ricardo.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We are here gathered in front of an institution, a newspaper that was rallying and gathering the imperialist armed forces of this country to go to war against Spain in order to obtain Cuba, the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam. This Hearst family newspaper has a long history of racism, of union busting, of attacking working people, attacking minorities. That's what this newspaper, the family Hearst that owns it, has done historically. And we should always remember that. We want to say that the Israeli government, right from its creation, has been a creature of imperialism. It was created by the United States, Britain, and other capitalist forces, taking advantage of the tragedy of the Jewish people during the Holocaust and during the Second World War. But in that partition that was created, the Palestinian people were the ones that got affected and oppressed and discriminated and exterminated to this day. And we have to oppose that with all our might. We have to mobilize. We have to protest. We have to do everything that we can do in our unions, in our communities, in our social organizations. I just want to say a few things. The working class has absolutely the power to stop this. Like a previous speaker said, if the workers occupy the ports, stop loading ships, if they stop running railroads and trains that carry weaponry for Israel and for other purposes to commit genocide around the world, everything, this event stops whenever the working class, if they are conscious about it, takes that initiative. So we have to agitate with our workplaces to do that. A couple of little things before I concede the microphone to the next speaker. It's not only the USA that is delivering weaponry to Israel. Germany builds Dolphin-class submarines to the state of Israel. Actually, Israel has more German submarine mates in its navy than the German navy itself. And also, Britain delivers military equipment, France, Spain, and many other European Union imperialist powers. So we appeal to the workers of all these countries to shut down production, to oppose this genocide. The other thing that we have to be aware is the Social Democrats, the Democratic Party, and the Liberals. The Democratic Party is not a party of the working class. The Democratic Party has been traditionally from supporting slavery to intervening in the Dominican Republic in 1916, when Woodrow Wilson was the president, in Haiti in 1915, going in Nicaragua in 1934. I mean, the Vietnam War was started by the Kennedy administration, the Johnson administration. The invasion of the Dominican Republic in 1965 was done under the presidency of Lyndon B. Johnson. So, comrades, friends, brothers and sisters, we have to stop supporting the Democratic Party. They are the graveyard of all social struggles. So we have to build an independent workers' party with an anti-capitalist platform to destroy this system of oppression that oppresses us right here in the streets of San Francisco, all the way to the third world and the whole world. So, workers of the world unite toward the creation of an international working class independent organization. Thank you.
I'm Sheila. I'm an occupational therapist. I'm here with healthcare workers for Palestine Bay Area and the Bay Area mental health care workers for Palestine. So there's a lot that I have to say. Everything people can look up, right? All the statistics are available out there. And we're here today for the women of Gaza. So there are 60,000 pregnant women in Gaza right now who are malnutritioned. They are dehydrated, and they do not have access to medical care. This is deliberate. This is not an accident. They are not human shields. These are basic human rights. This is genocide. There are 9,000 women have been killed in Gaza, and 0 women and girls in Gaza have access to menstrual products, right? This is basic human rights, and we cannot ignore it. I also want to address the journalists, the women journalists in Gaza, the ones who have put their lives on the line, the ones who have stayed behind to show us the truth, the ones who have helped us decide who around us has maintained their humanity and who among us chooses to no longer be a human being, who can turn away from suffering, who can turn away from our tax dollars funding genocide. So, like I said, there's a lot to say, but the least that we can do is keep our eyes open, keep speaking up, keep showing up, keep demanding human rights, and recognizing that what is happening to the women and the people of Gaza can happen to any of us. And so we cannot stay quiet. We cannot pretend like it's not happening, and we have to maintain our humanity and show up and scream every single day until the people of Gaza are free, until Palestine is free. Thank you.
Free! Free Palestine!
Free!
Free Palestine!
We'll be reading the names of some of the journalists that have been killed in a bit. But, you know, one of the things that everyone has been saying, these are crimes by the U.S. government, that the U.S. government is complicit in the war and what has been going on, and that's from the inception of the State of Israel. Israel was organized for occupation. It was organized for the occupation of the Zionists, and the United States has to break with that. So our next speaker is Michael Lyons. He's a healthcare worker, retired, and with City College. He taught at San Francisco City College, and he's with PLP. Welcome, Michael Lyon.
Thank you. I just want to bring up a point that's a little related to this. We all have are ready to vomit at looking at what's going on. That shows how murderous capitalism is. I want to talk about something a little different, and that this war is either becoming a regional war or is a regional war at this point, and it's not going to be contained. And it's bringing us closer to the inevitable world war, because the United States is going down, 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 and the power of China is going, and Russia are going up. There is going to be a world conflagration and confrontation about this. What does this have to do with Women's Day? Well, International Women's Day. Well, Women's Day got started toward the beginning of this century, and as it was developing, World War I was developing, and all the socialist groups said that they were going to be loyal to the international working class, and when push came to shove, they all fragmented along their nationalistic lines. But some of the greatest opposition to this fragmentation and nationalism was from women's groups. And this is exactly the kind of thing we need now, because nationalism is what's driving what's happening in the Mideast, and it's what's going to drive World War when it happens. So the working class is one international body, and we have to keep aware of that. And as war does develop, it is the opportunity for communist revolution. And many of us remember what happened in Vietnam. I mean, that war was drove the United States back, largely the valor of the Vietnamese, but it was also because the army would not fight, and that can happen again. So we need a world revolution and a communist revolution. Thank you.
That we face the danger of fascism in this country, because fascism is one of the solutions for the crisis of capitalism. And what we see is the rise of fascism, the attack on gays, lesbians, the attack on Muslims, homophobia, anti-Semitism. This is happening on a global level, and we have to organize against it. We have to prepare for it. Fascism is not going to be solved by Biden and the Democrats. They cannot stop fascism because they accept imperialism, they accept capitalism. So what we're going to do now, we're going to be reading the names of some of the journalists who have been killed in Palestine.
Some of the names are women journalists who've been killed by the bombs in Gaza. Ola Atala.
Ola Atala was killed on December 9th. She was a journalist. She was killed by an Israeli airstrike on a relative's house in Ed Derek district east of Gaza City. Local sources report that several members of her family also were killed at the same attack. She had previously served as a correspondent for Anadolu Agency, had worked for various local and international media organizations throughout her life.
Presente. Dua al-Sabur. She and Ola were killed in Khan Yunis bombings.
Dua al-Sabur. She was a journalist, and along with her husband and children were killed also on December 9th by an Israeli airstrike in Khan Yunis. And it was reported by the Palestinian Union of Journalists. She was working for the local Media Eye network.
Salam Mema.
Yeah. Salam Mema was killed in an Israeli airstrike on the Jabalia refugee camp north of Gaza. It struck the home of her family on October 9th. She was trapped under rubble for 4 days before rescue workers reached her lifeless body. She was confirmed dead on October 13th. Presente.
Salma Mukhaimer.
Salma Mukhaimer was a freelance journalist, and she was also killed alongside her child in an Israeli bombardment in Rafah, October 25th. Salma Mukhaimer, presente.
Dua Sharaf.
Dua Sharaf was killed on October 26th by Israeli airstrikes that were targeting the El Zawida area in central Gaza. It killed both Dua Sharaf and her young daughter. Her death was confirmed by Al-Aqsa Radio, which is operated by Hamas, where she was a radio presenter.
Presente.
Dua Sharaf, presente.
Ala Tahir Al-Hassanet.
Ala Tahir Al-Hassanet was a seasoned reporter and presenter at Al-Majed Media Network. Al-Tahir Al-Hassanet was killed. She was killed along with multiple family members in an airstrike in Gaza City in the Al-Daraj neighborhood, November 20th. Ala Tahir Al-Hassanet, presente.
Ayat Kadura. Shima El Gazar. Amal Zod. Presente. Nermin Kwawas. And most of these that we read were from a list on December 13th, so there were several more since then. But we wanted to recognize them by at least saying their names.
And so I'll just go on. Ola El Zanoun, she was a reporter with Reporters Without Borders and a correspondent in Gaza. She was hospitalized first with a leg injury following an Israeli bombardment in South Gaza. She was injured after evacuating her home in Gaza City. In Khan Yunis, she was injured. Angam Ahmad Adwan, did you have that also? During the ongoing Israeli assault on the Gaza Strip, Palestinian journalist Ala Hassan al-Hams was killed by an airstrike on February 12th. She was employed by the local Sanad news agency in Rafah. Angam Ahmed Awan, presente. And the last one is Ala Hassan al-Hams. She was also killed by an airstrike on February 12th, and she was a reporter with Sanad news agency in Rafah.
A healthcare worker to speak, but the healthcare workers are taking the lead in this country to defend Palestinians. Salute the healthcare workers in this country, brothers and sisters.
My name is Yasmin Ali, and I am from Somalia. When I was a little girl, I grew up war, so I know firsthand what war smells like, what war looks like, the fear of war. I still carry that. Some people say PTSD, like 4th of July. I don't like being outside. My family goes outside because they're born here, but I don't like being outside. The noise, I still remember those airplanes. So to me, all that is not funny. It's not good. It's not a good feeling. No matter, I'm 47 years old, and at that time I was 9 years old. So I still carry that. And to see what Palestinians are going through, and as a mom, as a woman, as a mother of 2 kids, one of them being in the autism spectrum, I think about the kids who have special needs. Anyone who knows about autism knows sensory, knows the noise, how that can bother kids with special need. And I look at the TVs, and sometimes I see kids with wheelchairs, special need, and I cannot tell you how I feel. I feel guilty being in my house and knowing we safe somewhat here, but to see these people, kids are neglected. The world just watches like we are watching another Steven Spielberg movie. It's unacceptable. We have all failed the Gazans. And I feel ashamed when I have to eat food and there are kids. I wish I could trade places. I always say, I wish I could trade places with them. Then to see those kids shivering, it angers me. To see those kids shivering and the cameras being in front of them, and I'm just like, hug them, hold them, tell them it's gonna be okay. And the world leaders just think it's okay, that this is normal, because they happen to be brown people, Muslim people. There are Christians there too. It's not just Muslim Palestinians. People forget that. And it's unacceptable. It is not okay. Every child matters. Every child is important. Every child have the right to education, to grow up safe and not be consult each other. I see 2-year-old consulting another one. And they shouldn't be having to worry about that. They should be playing, being kids. And to hear about the woman in Palestine doesn't have what they need, hygiene, you know, when they're in the cycle. Some of them gave birth to, you know, and we all know we had kids, those of us who have kids, you know, the postpartum, what do you go through? And here you are, you have to supposed to be strong and take care of, it's unacceptable, it's inhumane condition. And now to see these images where people are starving, look like skeletons, something that looks fake, not even real, honestly. I don't like to look at the TV, like what can I do? I donate, I'm going to these places where, you know, make sure I show up, I'm here. Make sure this year for the first time I don't want to vote, because either party, to be honest with you, does not care about me, does not care about people that look like me, my children. So if I'm an American citizen and I'm stuck in Palestine but you can't evacuate me, that's unacceptable. So this country has failed us. This country has no right to be any room where humanitarian are being discussed. They should be kicked out from the UN. They should be kicked out every place where they have no voice. You have no right. UK too, add them, Canada, all of them. They are all in this. Israel is not alone in what they are doing. And I don't like the fact that my tax dollars are going to kill people, to oppress people, to terrorize women and children. And they should be ashamed themselves. That no man, real men, do not go and kill women and children. That is not a man. That is not a manhood. And the woman in Palestine, I want to say, stay strong. You are strong. You have shown what a woman is. Woman is the backbone of every household, every country, everywhere. They lose their 4 children, all their family, yet they have the strength to get up and move forward and say, tomorrow will be another day. They are the definition of a strength. My hats are off to them, because that is what the hands that they are dealt with right now is very hard. It's very hard. My prayers are with you. My, donations are with you. I will do whatever I can not to vote for people into office. We need more people with conscience need to run for office. And I really want to say, for the American people have woken up. I'm proud of each person that's not Muslim, that's walking on the streets for, change is coming. America is paying attention. The people are waking up. Our government is not acting on our behalf. They are acting on behalf of other governments. And that is treason. I don't know what treason look like, but they shouldn't be working for Israel. They should be working for the people. Look at the homeless. Look at the people here. Every businesses have closed. And our tax dollars and money is going overseas. People who don't need it. Look at Israel, how beautiful it looks. Look at Gaza, that's insane. And look at America, this is America, garbage everywhere. You're not even safe to walk to the bar. You go inside the bar, there's a bunch of people with mentally ill who don't have the help that they need. They're sleeping under the freeway. Some of our veterans are sleeping on the street. This is America. This is what the US government has done for America, but they are so eager to sign billions and billions of my tax dollars that I didn't approve to kill people. That is not okay. I did not agree to that, and I will not vote for anyone. You have to earn my vote this time around. You have to earn, not by walking around and telling me too small line. You have to call for ceasefire. You have to come out and stand in front of everyone and condemn what is happening. I don't even know if I want to call this a genocide. I think we passed genocide. I don't know, we need a new name for this, because this is unacceptable. I thank you for letting me say that, and I'm glad to see each one of you here.
Bradley is a healthcare worker, a home care worker who's been fighting for justice. He's a member of SEIU 2015, and he is living on impossible wages. This is what's happening with nonprofit workers here in San Francisco. They're doing the same work as public workers, and they are making $19, $20 an hour, which is unlivable. So welcome, Bradley.
Bradley Wiedmeyer. I'm a IHSS worker and a supporter of Palestinian rights and a supporter of a democratic and secular government that recognizes the rights of all the citizens. And we are outraged at the targeting of journalists and women journalists. Scores and scores of journalists have been killed. And it's continuing, it's outrageous. You know, and you look back in time, the assault on the support of a nationalist movement. We do not support a theocratic state in this country. So why are we backing a theocratic state and forces that are oppressing not just the Palestinians? Now the secular Jewish population, you know, is being repressed by this theocratic far-right regime. You know, Ilan Pape points out how that Netanyahu's father was the secretary for Vladimir Jabotinsky, who was the far-right Zionist. And this outrage of having this extreme nationalist regime that Biden is supporting, that's anti-worker. And you know, as a home care worker, we need real unions. Our trade unions here in San Francisco are affiliated with a fake labor union. It's not even the Histadrut that is supposedly the Israeli Labor Federation. Is like in the 19th century here, we had that terrible Dennis Kearney who said the Chinese must go. And that is what the Histadrut did throughout this century, or well, the last century, where they would not support all the workers. In fact, their number one project was to stop Palestinian workers from being employed. And they would strike facilities and companies that hired Palestinians. It was outrageous. And that is like the anti-workers union. And that's the union that our AFL-CIO, San Francisco Labor Council, is still in affiliation with, and our national unions are still in affiliation with, and they have the same policy with the little show fake unions on the side that are they're not supporting the Palestinian Federation of Trade Unions. So we are internationalists. We support the right of workers everywhere. We don't just say we support one national workers against another. And we're not Christian nationalists, white nationalists, we're not Hindu nationalists. We just had the Democrats, Mayor Newsom just vetoed a bipartisan bill that would stand up for the rights of all Indian, South Asian Indians in California, because there's racist prejudice and discrimination within that community in California, and it was being made illegal. And Newsom vetoed that on behalf of Hindu nationalists that were giving big money to his campaign. And you know, it's the same thing with them supporting this Jewish nationalist outrage instead of the rights of all people in Palestine. And I just want to point out that one thing, you know, our whole history of discussing Palestine is that 10 to 30% of the population in different parts of Palestine were Christians. And I'm, you know, not to ignore the terrible treatment of the Islamic Palestinians, but the very Christian communities that the apostles from 2,000 years ago set up, those communities were continuous until 1948, when along with the Islamic Palestinians, they were driven out from their communities and their towns and their villages, and their congregations. You know, and there's a number of cities that have been removed. Most of the time they tore down the church as well, but a few of the more notable churches are like standing on an empty hill, and you know, you see the before with the city there as well. And I don't mean to go into so much detail, but it's an outrage that we haven't been told the truth. You know, that's what, if you've seen Israelism, the movie or the documentary, you know, that Jewish Americans are not being told the truth, and we're not being told the truth as well, the rest of us. And the Christian community should not be going along with this. And luckily, much of it is not. And it's, you know, I'm so grateful for the Jewish community speaking so strongly. Those people that are risking the majority right now, unfortunately, but are speaking out for the rights of all Palestinians, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, secular. And thank you so much. Thanks for everybody being here.
We have to keep up the pressure. We have to keep up organizing. Free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine. Stop the media lies.
Stop the media lies.
Stop the media lies.